Hi, my name's Mackenzie Green, and I'm here to talk about perceptions and culture for relational psychology. Web-based social cognition describes how social interactions form through internet connections rather than in-person connections. This is a fascinating facet of social cognition that has only come to light since the internet has become a significant part of day-to-day life. Internet interactions range from texting to Snapchat to Facebook, Instagram, email, any of those instant messaging apps, dating apps, all of those things count as internet connections. It's interesting to note that similarities have been found between in-person interaction and online interaction in regards to first impressions and social perception. Interestingly, due to limited cues during online interaction and not having the opportunity to process those nonverbal cues such as facial expression and body language, quote, those who rated an online partner made less detailed but more intense personality descriptions of their partners than did those who interacted face-to-face, end quote. That's from Sabates on page 99 of our textbook. Perceptions and culture. Culture can give us a bias as far as our first impressions and social cognition. In the TED Talks video, Burrell says, quote, the lens through which your brain sees the world shapes your reality, end quote. Is the reality I know due to my culture misinterpreting someone else's reality due to their culture? This can be really confusing if neither party is aware of their own cultural biases. A few examples of these cultural differences may be facial expression. Is a neutral facial expression perceived as simply neutral or negative? Is it perceived as negative by someone of a different culture? Next is eye contact. Is consistent eye contact welcome and encouraged, or is it seen as intense and aggressive? In-group versus out-of-group. These are interesting because this is an unconscious bias that we come up with all on our own. In-group would be someone that I find similarities with. I automatically place them into an in-group. For example, I work in healthcare. If I meet someone else who works in healthcare, I might automatically place them into a group that I feel comfortable with. This also may cause me to assume different things about them. I might assume that they believe the same things that I do based on my own perception of how they are. Lastly, affect. Is their affect positive or negative? Based on my cultural glasses, do I perceive others' social behavior as positive or negative? In the TED Talks video, Burrell talks about the perceptions we have across cultures. These perceptions definitely vary across cultures. What might be a friendly greeting in one culture could be an offensive gesture in another. As Burrell states, there are 3 ways to respond to cultural differences: confront, complain, or conform. I can neither refuse to acknowledge that culture plays a part in social interactions, therefore isolating myself. I could complain about how no one understands me, again, isolating myself. Or I could decide to learn how to respond to other people in different cultural scenarios. This would give me the best opportunity to have positive social interactions. I chose to study Colombia this week. Although there is a large representation of Latino and South American culture in the United States, there are a lot of differences between the United States of America and Colombia. In America, independence is the name of the game. The more independent you are, the more successful you seem. In Colombia, family is priority. Everyone cares for their family members together. In America, living with family is usually looked down upon. It may be perceived as lazy or dependent on parents for survival. However, in Colombia, it's normal and even expected it's normal and even encouraged for families to live together, even when the children are adults. Grandparents, parents, children, and grandchildren often occupy the same house. Here they take care of each other and live in community together. In America, the single person and self-promotion is important. However, studies show that for Colombians, they emphasize interpersonal values over personal promotion, that social value over single person value is really big in Colombia. In America, there's no expectation as far as respect for elders. Of course, we're expected to respect our elders, but there's no specific way of doing that. In Colombia, it's expected that people stand whenever an elder enters the room. It may be perceived as disrespectful if an American were not to rise when a Colombian elder enters the room. This could cause problems as far as interpersonal interactions. Finally, language. Colombia is a primarily Spanish-speaking country, while the United States primarily speaks English. Interesting to note is that some Americans like to assume their own knowledge and others' stupidity when dealing with a language barrier. Lopez gives a couple of examples in his study describing this behavior. There are a couple of movies and even books mocking Colombian culture because of a different language than Americans, and it shows Americans mocking Colombians because they don't understand, or they try to assume that they know what's going on when really it's just a language barrier. In my personal experience, I have seen Americans assume that a language barrier means their own higher intelligence, when in reality intelligence has nothing to do with it. It's simply just a different language. Some new perspectives that I found from studying this week is that it's easy to unintentionally offend someone of a different culture. It's also easy to be judgmental of someone without knowing the accurate context or maybe their cultural context. And it's important to take the time to learn about other people and to make sure that we're not purposely being offensive. And finally, I learned that Colombia is far more family-oriented than America is as a whole. In conclusion, this research has taught me that our biases are sometimes completely unconscious. It's important to be open-minded and willing to learn from other cultures in order to promote unity and to understand each other. Thank you.